And welcome once again to another episode of the Horizon Roundtable. I am Bob McDonald, and you can find me at Bob McDonald on Twitter. Jimmy Lemke, who is my normal co-host, was not available today, so filling in for him today is Matt Dudek.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
And yes, I remember your Twitter account now. It's at GrizzTalkOU. So.
Oh, I came prepared this time. I was ready for that.
Oh, good, because apparently you caught some crap for that last time. And of course, you can follow the podcast on Twitter at Horizon RT, and it was kind of this week is kind of weird. We actually got a lot to go over. We got Northern Kentucky, who had a horrible week. We have. On the opposite end, Youngstown State actually had a really good week, and somehow may have gotten themselves back into the conversation for the ace spot of the Horizon League tournament. We'll talk a little bit about kind of the games involved in that, because one of them involves Oakland, and we're going to start off with that. So
great.
As we talked about, remember that the last time we spoke, I said very truly that I was holding out for a Brad Brechting game, and this week Brad came through for us.
You didn't just get one Brad game. You got two.
I got two of them. I know.
Man, is he good when he... I mean, if this continues, he realized how much bigger he was than everybody.
Yes, that is what happened. So folks, what happened was during Oakland's loss to Youngstown on Thursday, Brechting went off for 21 points and 18 rebounds, which is unheard of. And then he follows that up. I swear to God, he follows that up against Cleveland State by hitting his first 13 shots in a row and finishing with 32 points. And so, yes, our long-awaited Brad Brechting breakout game has finally arrived. So nice that he did it twice.
He enjoyed it the first time and said, "Hey, that was fun. Let's do that again," and did it even better.
Yeah. The game plan was pretty simple, especially on Saturday, because Cleveland State, even with all the issues they are having, the bottom line is they don't have an answer for a guy like Brechting. They never did. But usually it's somebody else who torches them, like Javen Coverland or Xavier Hill-Mays or somebody like that. But Saturday, no. I mean, they put Steph Kenich on him. That didn't work because Brad Brechting has about 2 inches and 100 pounds on Steph Kenich. And then they tried Al Eichelberger and that didn't work. Then they tried Spider Johnson and that didn't work. I was about half tempted to think they were going to just have a cardboard cutout of Jalen Hill, who just suspended for 3 games, just out there to try to defend him. But yeah, that's kind of how it went. Again, 32 points for him on Saturday, and that 21 and 18 showing on Thursday. And I guess we both should be a little disappointed that it was Tarkus Ferguson who was named Horizon League Player of the Week instead of Brechting.
I mean, Ferguson had a good week. I see why they did it. That's hard.
I do see that because in addition to because of the fact, I'm sure that in addition to averaging nearly almost 20 points a game over the week, he also happened to. I believe it. Yeah. So winning does matter.
They won both their games.
Winning does matter, and one of those wins was against Northern Kentucky. So before we talk about them a little bit, obviously, I want to get into the conversation about where Oakland is right now, because Oakland is in a situation where they look a little better than they might have. Although they did have that one setback to Youngstown State, but they lost by a point. It's weird because it's weird to me because obviously I look at it from now they're now thanks to the fact that they're still in the hunt now since Northern Kentucky got swept this week. they're back in a position to potentially compete for the regular season title again. Who knew?
Sure. I mean, in theory, they go out and win both games this weekend. They've got Wright State and NKU. I mean, okay, that's you got to win in this league. What else are you going to say? But I didn't expect them to be in the hunt going. After the loss to Youngstown, that seemed devastating. But then NKU went and had their week, which I think we're going to talk about in a bit here too. And
that's true.
At that point, that kind of opened up the game plan for opened up the conference for everybody.
Sure did. And as I believe I said last episode, Cleveland State cures all ills. Apparently, if you need to win desperately, Cleveland State is sitting right there for the taking. Apparently,
that was nice of them to show up in our arena on Saturday. I appreciated that a lot.
Oh, jeez, yeah. This is it's not getting any better at Cleveland State because you now have. You have Tyree Appleby, who had a hand injury. Looks like he re-aggravated the hand injury, and I don't know if we're going to see him. I mean, I don't know if we're going to see him this week.
It made no sense. Why did they put him back out there? He was clearly not well.
They didn't have a choice. They didn't have a choice. They don't have a point guard. Rashad Williams is a good player, but he's not there he's not a pure point guard at this point in time. I figured that's good. That's kind of him as a point guard is a work in progress.
Sure.
Him and Dontel Highsmith are kind of those two guards who aren't necessarily point guards. So, and then you take out Cash Thomas, who has a hip pointer, and I don't know when he's going to be back. You're left with a situation where Cleveland State clearly didn't think they had a choice, or Tyree said, what, screw it, I'm gonna give it a go and see what's up, but it did not work out well for them.
That did not go well. I got to say, from the Oakland side going into that game, I'm glad we kept Trey Maddox out of that game. He's in concussion protocol right now.
He is, yes, that's correct.
And I heard that he passed, but they still weren't really sure, so they're going to hold him out, and maybe even for this week too. I think they'll know tomorrow.
Gotcha.
But I'm glad that we were able to keep him out, still get the win. I think he's a bigger part of the Oakland puzzle than we realized. I think that was some of the loss to Youngstown.
Yeah, that's true. But again, none of this matters when you play Cleveland State.
But thank God Cleveland State was on the schedule.
Thank God they were on the schedule. I think I had laid this out. I had laid this out on Twitter about last week. That actually not even last week, right on Friday actually. That Cleveland State could very well be mathematically eliminated from the Horizon League tournament next Saturday.
Yeah, I saw that.
In less than a week, they maybe in less than a week they could be blinked out of the picture. I don't see how that's. I mean, and they got. And they may not even, and again, I don't have much, without Jalen Hill, he's on the last week, on the last game of his 3-game suspension against Green Bay. We don't know what the status of Tyree Appleby is. We don't know what the status of Cash Thomas is. We don't know if they're going to be available on Thursday. You're maybe looking at us, and it's not going to look, it's not looking good. Although I must say, and there were again, and this is the most frustrating part with Cleveland State, is that you see potentially how you potentially could see them, pulling one out. I mean, because they weren't, up until Oakland pulled it out in the end. That game was still in question a little bit. They needed every 32 of Brad Brechting's points at that point. And then, of course, they just go completely unconscious and then pull away by about 20. As I should have known, they always do. Yeah, it's always with Cleveland State that they get hit with a run because apparently defense is a foreign concept. And I guess we'll be learning that. I guess they'll be learning that next year.
I keep making this joke. I mean, the good news is if they get eliminated, Felton can take the team and run a heist. I swear that guy is a B-movie villain waiting to happen. So he's gonna find something to do with them.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty. I don't think you're alone in that assessment. You've got a couple of Cleveland State fans who are probably thinking, B-movie villain. Yeah,
him and McLean are the ultimate duo in B-movie villain.
B-movie villain. So yeah, but yeah, that's kind of their situation now. And again, they have But then again, and then the other part of that trip, the other part of the Milwaukee and Green Bay trip this week is going to be Youngstown State. And honestly, I don't know if that actually looks pretty good for Youngstown State right now.
That's a team that's starting to try to put it together. I mean, they're fighting to make the conference tournament. They're sitting in that second to last spot right now, but they're at least alive, and maybe they're putting some things together.
They obviously are. I mean, I sincerely thought that was going to be a tough road to hoe for both Cleveland State and Youngstown State on during the Michigan trip, and honestly, Youngstown State surprised the hell out of me. It really did. I mean, they got the win. They got the win at the own arena, and then I guess we'll talk about this right now.
Yes.
Who throws a shoe? Really? Okay, so
you can't make this stuff up.
So, folks, if you did have an opportunity to see the game between Youngstown State and Detroit in the closing minutes of the game,
Detroit is up.
So what happened? Was when Detroit ended up I think it was Darian King. He lost his shoe. He lost his shoe, and one of Detroit's assistants, I think it was Eric Devendorf.
It was absolutely Eric Devendorf of Syracuse fame.
I guess the idea was he was trying to get Darian King's shoe back to him down the floor. But instead what happened was he flung it in plain view of everyone. It was a weird
underhand throw.
Huh?
It was like a weird shuttle underhand throw. I don't know what that was.
It got some air. It got enough air that the refs noticed and teed him up for it. I will say this. That technical was not the reason that they lost. The reason that they lost is they had their last offensive set and their last offensive set was questionable, and Devin Morgan hit that three-pointer a three-pointer at the closing seconds of the game. That was the reason that they lost. Those two free throws, because of a shoe being thrown, they could have overcome that they really could have overcome that by scoring like in their last offensive possession. But that's not what happened. It just didn't work.
I mean, it comes down to mercy. I mean, that kind of sums up their season. They were right there, and something weird happened, and Antoine Davis can only overcome so much.
Yeah. Now
he can't do everything. He can't be the shoe thrower too now.
I don't think I want him to be the shoe thrower. That would be bad. That would not be a good thing. So
probably be good at that too. I wouldn't be shocked.
I'm sure he would. He's good at everything else. Why don't we throw shoe throwing in there while we're at it? But yeah, but by and large, that wasn't but again, the big thing for them was they did not the execution at the end of the game wasn't there, and so as a consequence. Youngstown State was able to get in. Devin Morgan, who, by the way, I think is turning out to be a pretty good shooter for Youngstown State right now, because he almost single-handedly got them back in the game against Cleveland State when Cleveland State was up by 24. He almost single-handedly got them back in the game for that. So I'm not really surprised. It didn't really surprise me that the guy shooting putting up the three-pointer to potentially win the game was Devin Morgan, and he nailed it.
Like I said, if they're starting to put some things together.
That is it's interesting. This may very well not be your your father's Youngstown State potentially.
I love to try to make fun of Youngstown State because they're just such a football school, and all these things. But at the same time, they just have a way of beating Oakland. It doesn't matter where, when, something always happens.
You guys have the worst time with them. Like
we do.
Always. You have the worst time with them, and it wasn't so. But yeah, I mean, and you weren't able to win against them. The Penguins. What was it? It was 75-74. So that was a pretty narrow victory for them.
You're up 7 or 8 at the half, something like that.
Yeah. And and then the same thing, and again the same thing happens on Saturday against Detroit Mercy. I think the big thing for them is that, And you're seeing, again, this is kind of a culmination of a lot of the young guys coming in. Some of them are stepping up around the league. Some of them have fallen off the planet. In spite of Cleveland State's losses, you got Rashad Williams, who is at least, he is the definitive second scorer for Cleveland State. Youngstown State, same thing. Youngstown State now also has, not just Devin Morgan, but Darius Quisenberry, who was who was named the freshman of the week this week. He was named the freshman over Antoine Davis. Again,
anytime you get a freshman of the week over Antoine Davis, you had a good week.
Winning matters. Again, winning matters, and
right.
By virtue of the fact he won, he got 23 against you. He got 23 against Youngstown. I mean, against Oakland. I guess we're seeing a lot more of. I'm seeing a lot more of Youngstown State than I possibly thought I might. I think Youngstown. I think. From my perspective, I think Youngstown State is kind of in the position, maybe a little bit worse than I thought Cleveland State would actually be in this year, but which obviously didn't happen because, again, Cleveland State is about 2 games away from being mathematically eliminated from the from the horizon, from the conference tournament, and Youngstown is still kind of fighting back. I mean, I do see, and I guess we will still be putting it on the table that the possibility of Cleveland State and Milwaukee not being in the tournament, the possibility is real, which means Matt, you and Carrick better warm up your act for tournament time, because you guys might be sitting in the seats here.
I mean, we're ready to go, but I've seen both of our schools in this tournament, and I don't know how long we'll stick around either. But ready to go if need be.
Well, there is that. I mean, I didn't say it was foolproof. Sorry,
one game at a time. That's all I can do right now.
Well, yeah, obviously, but again, even with the loss, and again, once again, Cleveland State cures all ills, because let's face it, they both Detroit and Oakland were able to split the weekend, so that's kind of they both have that there. There's still, both teams are still at the top of the conference standings. Mm-hmm. And they're starting to be kind of it still looks like their teams at the top kind of still have a little bit of hope to potentially get into to potentially take the top seat. And again, Oakland and Detroit have that opportunity this week, because Oakland and Detroit play Northern Kentucky and Wright State, the 2 teams that are at the top right now. And again, Oakland is Oakland is only a game out, and Detroit is only 2 games out. And honestly, again, I cannot stress this enough. I know we've beaten this into the ground for episode after episode. There is absolutely no way on the planet that anybody could have predicted that Detroit was going to be in the top half of the conference standings this year. Next year, maybe. This year, no way.
No way. And absolutely, again, we all know I love to make fun of Mercy, but no way. Full credit for what Mike Davis is doing over there.
Yeah. He's got you sweating for that. He's got you sweating for that second Metro Series game, I bet.
It's not even a rivalry if the other team doesn't ever win.
Well, there is that. So we'll kind of push for that a little later on. But yeah, and again, the reason that we're in this situation, because again, you have, I swear, it's like everybody's in. You have 3 teams who are 6-5. You have the IUPUI, UIC, and Detroit Mercy all at 6-5. You have Wright State and Oakland at 7-4. And you have Northern Kentucky right at the top. It's like nobody wants to get away from each other.
No, and I mean, we'll talk about it in a couple weeks or so, but really all this is showing is everybody's fighting for a 15 seed come March.
Yeah, they are. It's true.
And that's not where anybody wants to be, but that's what this is shaping up to be.
But yeah, and in spite of that, everybody's still, I see at least 9 teams still fighing.
Mm-hmm. Well, Cleveland State's just trying to get through the next month.
I don't think. Yeah, I think they want to keep. I don't think. I think they're at a point where they might be afraid that somebody might. They might leave somebody at one of the turnpike rest stops or something. I mean, that's kind of where we're at right now.
Might be better than Cleveland.
Oh,
okay. I don't actually take that back. I
know you don't. No, I mean it's just been Anyway, so yeah. Well, the only team that who had a worse weekend than Cleveland State is Northern Kentucky, and that I find it interesting that this was kind of I really did think this was kind of the week that Northern Kentucky could kind of solidify their place in the conference, and the opposite happened. They brought everybody back to them a little bit.
This should have been the week they pretty much put it away. From here, They could still have lost one somewhere; it would have been no problem. But they made a lot of work for themselves now going forward.
And it is absolutely not what happened. I mean, the IUPUI game was kind of I thought it was, I knew that, I know, and I've said this before, Northern Kentucky was never going to, only lose a game in the conference. Maybe two, running the table in the conference, no matter how good you are, is an impossible feat. So I have no illusions that they were ever going to be, though they were never going to be 18-0. I always thought they were going to lose something. So Oakland obliged me in the first half of the conference schedule by beating the Norse. And then this week, I mean, really, it's just holy cow. So that was IUPUI. I mean, they go into Indianapolis, which incidentally, hopefully, is not a harbinger of things to come, given that Farmers Insurance Arena is going to be the future host of the tournament.
Shocked. I'm
not even close to being shocked. Yeah, we had a nice long conversation about how not shocked we were about that last week. But they go into Northern Kentucky. I mean, Northern Kentucky goes into Indianapolis, and man, that did not go well for them at all. Now, mind you, of course, and again, I've said this before that IUPUI does have some potential within that in that conference. I mean, they were one of the only teams that actually posted a winning record in the non-conference, so you saw some potential, and then they kind of fell off a little bit. And now they're in, and now they're back in that log jam like with everybody else.
Right in the thick of it.
Right in the thick of it. They're only 2 games out of another bad weekend from Northern Kentucky, and they're right in it like everybody else is. And again, it helps on the Northern for IUPUI. It really helps them that they do have. They do have their, and this is why this is important. They have, some scoring. They always have, Cameron Justice is definitely their guy, their primary guy, but they always have, they're always getting something out of Evan Hall. They're always against Northern Kentucky, Jalen Manette scored 18 for them. So they're always getting something out of them. So that's going to be something moving forward that IUPUI can kind of hang their hat on. I just can't really explain what exactly. I mean, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't exactly see the game against Northern Kentucky because and IUPUI because I don't even know what I was doing, but. I think I don't know. I think I was watching Celebrity Big Brother or something. I don't know what I was doing at that point in time. So, but the thing is though, and this is probably kind of my fault, but thinking that Northern Kentucky's kind of has this in the driver's seat right now, you kind of get lulled into that false sense of security that kind of got dashed away this week. Honestly, I was gonna. Before I invited you to fill in, I was just going to fly solo on the fly solo on the podcast and record it before the game started, and that would have been a wrong move, as it turns out, because I would have probably said, okay, Northern Kentucky is still 2 games out, which they absolutely positively are not.
Right.
So
I'm also glad to hear that I'm better than flying solo.
Well, that is true. Well, when you record a podcast and you record a podcast by yourself, you want to make it feel like you're talking to yourself. I mean, who knows how many people are listening at this point in time? I'm assuming a few, but I mean, it does get kind of you do kind of get concerned yourself that you're just the angry guy shouting at a cloud.
Basically.
Yeah, you don't want to. Yes, folks, you don't want to grow up to be that guy. But again, I thought for sure that Northern Kentucky would kind of turn it around and go into UIC, and that didn't happen either. weird. I'm a little the first. There was a couple of head scratchers there, and one of them we'll talk about a little later, which is another reason why I'm glad I have you on the podcast today. But the first one is the timing of the actual game. I guess from what I understand, UIC is scheduling their games at 3:12 Central Time.
Yeah, we caught that because last week when Oakland did the Indiana Chicago venture, we had a 11 a.m. start and then a 4:12 Eastern time. So it was two really weird times for us both days.
So to their credit, obviously 312 is Chicago's area code. So to UIC's credit, they're kind of really they with all the things they've been doing this year, they've really been kind of leaning into the Chicago, the Chicago thing. I mean, because they're right smack dab in the middle of it. They're right smack dab in the middle of Chicago. I mean, they're leaning in on the uniforms, the floor. I mean, it all screams. The time of the tip off of the games, it all screams Chicago to me. So I like the concept. I'm not so sure I liked it on Sunday, though. This particular Sunday, though. Because they were one of the last games that was on right before the Super Bowl, and which is funny because that game was actually more exciting than the Super Bowl. I damn near fell asleep during the Super Bowl. It was a snooze fest, and Northern Kentucky and UIC was anything but. Once again, it's interesting when you have a team like Northern Kentucky that has already kind of established itself with multiple scores from in multiple arenas, multiple areas. Drew McDonald in the interior, Tyler Sharp at the exterior, Jalen Tate if you need him, Dantes Walker if you need to, Zayna Robinson, all those guys. And then to turn around and be able to, beat them is something. And again, and I think I kind of chalk that up to, the big surprise in this game is I don't know if they accounted for Michael Diggins because that kid was shooting lights out. He was 7 for 10.
I don't think anyone was accounting for him.
Yeah, they didn't have an answer for him. So and the funny part, he wasn't even the guy who hit the winning shot. It was Jamie Hale who only shot 2 other times. He only played 15 minutes, and he was the guy shooting that 3-pointer at the end, and he nailed it.
Nailed it, absolutely.
And he nailed it. So, but one of the things I constantly contend is the strength of UIC's backcourt. I think I have made arguably that is one of the better backcourts in the conference. I mean, it has to be when you got a guy like Tarkus Ferguson there.
Sure.
And even when Marcus Otte doesn't have a great game, and he kind of didn't against Northern Kentucky, you still have guys who will step up. Which is exactly what Diggins. Yep. So, which is what Diggins did. Which is you break out. Steve McClain breaks out Jamie Hale at the last minute. Say, hey, go out there and shoot a 3, kid, and he hits a 3.
And it worked.
And it worked. It absolutely worked. And it was and now instead of the Flames being 5 and 6. And not being entirely sure where they stand, they're back in it too. Now they're within 2 games of Northern Kentucky, so potentially they might be able to make an argument at this point if Northern Kentucky slips up again.
What would UIC look like if Dixon didn't go pro? That's what I want to know.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Would they be better or worse? There were times they were better without. He was one of my favorite players, and he's doing good things. I'm just curious.
That's a damn good question. Well, he obviously knew something. He obviously knew something because I think he's in the G League right now, isn't he? With the Windy City Bulls.
In Chicago. Yeah,
he's playing for the Windy City Bulls in the G League. So Dikembe Dixon clearly knew something and knew that it was time for him to go. And as I don't know if we scoffed at him for doing that. I don't think we scoffed at him. I think we tried to invite. I think we started to invite him on the show or something, but because that's what we do. And Dikembe Dixon, the invitation is still open, by the way. That's a good question. I don't know. That would be something. I mean, again, when you look at kind of the dynamic with UIC during their postseason run compared to when they have Dikembe Dixon on the roster. You know, they arguably did just as well, if not better, without him.
The better team game, I think, which is what they used to beat NKU. So maybe that's the difference maker.
That's interesting, though. Yeah, you bring up that's a good point. I mean, I'd have to think about that really. So I want to get into weird thing number 2, by the way. And Matt, I as I understand it, you are a connoisseur of pep bands.
I like to think so.
In fact, if I remember correctly, you were actually seriously considering doing a pep band podcast.
I think like 15 people would probably listen to it.
15 people would listen to it, and of course, if you ever did that, my first request would be the rise and fall of the Cleveland State Pep Band. You'd have to do an oral history of that one.
I want to dig into that just for myself because I don't understand it. They have such a good music school; it blows my mind. But that's a whole different topic.
My good friend, who was the best man at my wedding, he was in the pep band. We were rather engrossed in the pep band for a while. But yeah, I mean, it's weird because you're absolutely right. That is Cleveland State's music program is nothing to sneeze at, and they have plenty of places in. And they didn't even need to. There were points in time in the late '90s, early 2000s where they didn't need to recruit anybody. People were just coming in. And I actually knew the pep band director at the time, David Hager, is
okay.
So he actually, in fact, David Hager is actually the one who wrote the fight song, as far as I remember. If not, sorry, Dave, I know you don't listen to. So he's last I remember, as I understand, he is a high school band director or assistant band director. And I don't know if he's still in I can't remember if he's still at Lorraine High School or not, but that's where he was last time I saw him, and that was a couple years ago. But so yeah, but again, it's weird that I know we're getting on a sidetrack, but it's such a weird. I don't know where the drop off happened. Now they're like sitting in the corner and they're sad.
I'm telling you, there's a whole podcast waiting to happen on we could start with Horizon League pep bands and just work our way through.
Yeah, there you go.
But anyway, not right now.
But anyway, not right now. So the reason I wanted to bring up the pep band thing is weird thing number 2 happened. So apparently a member of the UIC pep band was ejected from the game. I guess what happened was he was banging on a megaphone. First of all, I have many questions about that entire exchange, not the least of which being where the hell did he get a megaphone at?
Where
did that come from? Did he steal it from one of the cheerleaders?
Where my megaphone came from once upon a time, but I don't know if I'd get in trouble for that story. But I can't tell you where his megaphone came from.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm glad I didn't actually like focus on the origins of where the megaphone came from. I'm assuming it came from the cheerleaders. We can't be sure, though.
Let's assume it was.
Let's assume that it was, yes. But yeah, so yeah, apparently he was banging that a little too loudly. The referees actually stopped the game and kicked him out of the game.
Yep.
So I've never seen that before. I've seen fans get kicked out of the game. I have never seen that, like ever.
I have never seen it. So here's my perspective. Obviously, I was around this for a long time.
Sure.
I have been warned by a referee before.
Okay.
I was always kept under like lock and key because I would get out of control at games, which is fun. I'm a drummer. I had all these things in front of me that could make noise.
Yeah.
But it is illegal to use a noisemaker during gameplay.
Oh, really?
That a lot of people do it, but it is actually illegal. So I'm surprised that the Horizon refs did something about it, unless there was a warning ahead of time. But
that's a good question.
But I mean, you couldn't use a cowbell. You couldn't use anything. So if he was using an implement to bang, I think he was banging on a seat with it. That is technically illegal. It is something he can be thrown out for. Now, again, the fact that they actually did something about it, the fact that somebody followed through on that blows my mind. But
it is the Horizon League. Stranger things have happened.
A lot of times after free throws, you hear like a little, a drummer play a little thing. That's actually illegal. I was never allowed to. Our pep band guy kept me under, like I said, lock and key.
No kidding, because Cleveland State's used to do that. After some kid made a three, if a Cleveland State player made a free throw, out came the cowbell. cowbell, but you guys couldn't do that. Really? Wow, that's interesting.
Nope. And I mean, again, technically, letter of the law, that is illegal. But is anyone going to do anything about it? No.
Generally, no. That's why it was so bizarre that happened there.
In the midst of a game, if that's the biggest issue, that blows my mind.
I mean, Jesus, there's a close game going on the court, for crying out loud. I don't know. At that
point, the kid's lucky that. Oh, go ahead.
I mean, that kid must have been like a level of obnoxious that you couldn't deny. And honestly, I was watching the game. I didn't even know that somebody was getting thrown out until it happened.
He's lucky at that point that they only threw him out and didn't assess a technical, which they can do. They could give them a bench.
Yes, theoretically, yes.
Tech.
Yeah, theoretically,
so at that point,
that can happen.
They're lucky that they didn't cost them points. But
and that's and that's kind of the risky run, but. And not just for the pep band, but for I've not seen it in my life. I know it has happened where something outside of the players and the coaches causes a situation where a technical foul is assessed. I don't think I've seen it in Horizon League play ever, and I've been watching forever. But yeah, that actually is a potential penalty that nobody ever considers until a weird thing like some kid hitting a megaphone on a seat happens.
Again, I am shocked that they did it. At the same time, it kind of I didn't see the game. I'm not going to even pretend I didn't watch it. But if it was that noticeable, that tells you there was that few people in the arena to be able to lock in on that, and that's a bigger problem for Chicago at the same time.
Well, again, you got to remember this was on a Sunday, on Super Bowl Sunday.
Right.
You scheduled your game literally 2 hours before the Super Bowl is supposed to start. I mean, like I said, while I appreciate and get the adherence to this commitment to the Chicago theme, maybe Sunday was probably not the time to break out the 3-12 game. I mean,
not on Sunday.
Not on that Sunday, at the very least.
Before I forget, I have to also bring up the Super Bowl thing that goes with Horizon League. You realize that the reason the Patriots won yesterday is Valhalla Vanguard's fault.
Oh, is it? What? What do you mean it's all their fault? Whoa, okay, you got to back up. I don't know. What happened?
So, I know this is going to shock you. Me and Valhalla Vanguard are going back and forth on Twitter now and then.
Yes, you are.
We
well
do
documented on this show, I might add.
What's that?
Well documented on this show, I might add.
Yes. But I mentioned, their 0-2 weekend and how rough that was. And he gave me his typical Norse up and a go Rams. And I said, oh, look, now the Rams are going to lose too. Here we are, folks. Blame NKU if you don't like how that worked out.
You know what? I mean, I was just waiting for it to be over, honestly. It was.
I fell asleep. I'm old.
It was a snooze fest, man. It was, and I mean, maybe it was because of the teams involved, because let's face it, you got the New England Patriots that are literally always there. I mean, and then, it's so commonplace in New England that, when they won, the only kid who got arrested in the Boston area after the game was a Rams fan. That was it. And then don't get me started on the Rams and, the reason that they're in Los Angeles in the first place, because, they just had to screw St. Louis out of a team, because they've never had to deal with that on their own once in their life. Like St. Louis hadn't had a problem with teams leaving them already versus the Cardinals, and now this. Mm-hmm. Both the Cardinals and the Rams, have made it to the Super Bowl. Even although, of course, so too did the Rams when they were in St. Louis. But yeah. So I don't know if I would chalk that up to the Valhalla Vanguard rooting for the Rams as cursing them per se. But I'm sure you're going to get a lot of mileage out of it this week.
I'm going to run with it for now. I like those guys.
Well, I mean, this week would be the best opportunity to kind of stir it up, because this is the week for you guys. This is the week for this is where the rubber meets the road. We're heading down the end of the road here, and it's it's going to be a situation where, I think whoever's coming out of this weekend best is going to be best positioned to win the regular season title. So I guess it just depends on who that's going to be.
It's gonna be a week that explains a lot and puts a lot of things in perspective.
Like for example, Cleveland State being mathematically eliminated from the conference tournament.
Yeah,
I don't want them to be mathematically eliminated from the conference tournament, mind you. I'm sure, I'm pretty sure I had at least one assistant coach from Cleveland State unfollow me because I was being such a dick. But look at the situation. How can you, I mean, at this point in time, winning would be a severe fluke. And it shouldn't be that way.
They're just not having a good season here. It shouldn't have
been that way at all. It shouldn't have been that way at all. They're a young team. They're hurt. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, okay. Still worth more than one win. Still worth more than one win. I mean, everybody goes back and forth, and again, as I mentioned multiple times, Dennis Felton is probably in spite of being 1-10 in the conference and potentially out of the tournament 3 weeks before it even started, their season effectively being over on February. Their season being effectively over on February 9th. Dennis Felton is probably the safest coach in the league right now, only because he doesn't have a boss.
Yeah, that's a good place to be.
Yeah, it's good and dysfunctional.
I mean, good for him.
Good for you, I guess. I mean, now mind you, even if Mike Thomas was still there, he'd still be there next year.
Well, aren't they still paying Waters too? I mean, they can't afford to fire him.
No, I think Waters is. I think they already paid off Waters. I think they're good.
But they wish they kept them. I like me some Waters.
Yeah, I think honestly, and I think the only difference between I think what would I don't know. I don't know about I do know that Rob Edwards will probably still be here. Apparently so he would still be there at the very least. So we wouldn't have Tyree Appleby, no way. But definitely would have had the folks who he probably would have kept Rob Edwards. He probably would have kept Jabri Blunt. Jabri Blunt probably wouldn't have transferred to North Carolina Central. I don't know, but I don't. Do they do better than 9-20? Do they do better than losing 20+ games again? I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know.
Tough to tell.
They had six seniors on the team. I mean, that they only won 9 games last year with 6 seniors on the team was kind of an indictment of Waters as a recruiter to begin with. And then, of course, they go on the tournament run and they go on the conference tournament run that gave us all a false sense of security. So, but yeah, that's that. But again, within a week, we're not even going to be talking about them again on the podcast because we're going to be talking about everybody at the top. Because I think it's going to come down. With the way that the conference is set up. You could very well see that it's so tight, or tight-ish. I mean, a bunch of teams within, you have 7. I think you have 7 teams. 6 teams within 2 games of each other. 6 of them. So that's. I didn't see that happening. I thought for sure that the middle of the pack was going to stay a little bit more bunched up. But yeah. It's moving up to the top, and if I'm Northern Kentucky, I'm a little concerned that you don't want to make any more missteps, and lo and behold, here comes a potential misstep with Oakland coming in.
I mean, I don't think it's going to be a misstep. I think that is a targeted game for NKU. I don't envy the way they're going to come out. I'm sure Drew McDonald is pissed from that first game still. And he's going to come right out at Oakland, and Oakland's going to have to weather a big NKU storm to start and see if they can get that settled in.
Yeah, that is good. That is going to be something. I mean, that's the one that is definitely one I'm looking at this week. Although, I mean, let's face it, that's both again. Detroit Mercy continues to surprise, so that's going to be an interesting thing to watch this week as well. To see where they're at.
They have no stop for Loud and Love when they play Wright State, so that'll be
no, that's true. I mean, I don't think maybe Gerald Blackshear who's finally healthy, but I don't know, probably not. I don't know.
I don't think so.
But we've seen that before, but. They didn't have a stop for Loud and Love at the beginning of the season, and look what happened there.
Again, you're rolling on Davis just going crazy, and he's capable of it. I'm not gonna ever doubt that guy. So
no, That is very true.
It'll be a fun week of basketball, that's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, even with that's, if you're, I mean. Yeah, you can't underestimate how well that Antoine Davis can play, and I think he's probably the one of the most pleasant surprises in the Horizon League. I think that I'm sure the conference offices are losing their minds right now because they have this star now that they can all rally around or whatever. Whatever. But that's we'll just kind of leave it at that. So, thank you, Matt, again for filling in for Jimmy. I know, crossing fingers we get Jimmy back here soon. You can obviously, as we always say, all episodes of the Horizon Roundtable you can find at sportshacks.com, hax.com. And you can find episodes of the Horizon Roundtable on whatever podcast app you're using, or one of your Amazon devices or Google devices. I mean, we post it up on our YouTube channel, the Sports Hacks YouTube channel too. So plenty
it's
of
everywhere.
Everywhere now. It's awesome. So that's gonna wrap it up for us. And thank you all for listening.